A change of pace now, and it's time to talk about power following the release of this AEMO report. And joining me now is Willox from the AIG Group. Good morning to you, Ines. Thanks for joining us. Are we in crisis?
Well, we're in another year where we could be in crisis, and I think that's what the AEMO report is suggesting. And it's bad news for business, it's bad news for households, because there's a lack of clarity and a lack of certainty around power supplies for the summer coming up. We've had almost 15 years of this, Peter, where we haven't had certainty around energy policy, around power policy, and now we're reaping the fruits of that. And we can only see high prices for energy on the horizon for as far as the eye can see. We can see uncertainty around reliability for quite a long time. And we're in a situation where things are not getting better. They're probably teetering towards getting worse.
The Energy Minister spoke yesterday and pointed to the fact that this is what happens when you don't have reliable energy, perhaps pointing to this push towards renewables. Is that a sentiment that you share?
Well, we've said for a long time that our members who operate sort of the industry of Australia are fairly agnostic about where they get their power from, whether it be sort of coal or renewables. But the fact is that you do need a very solid baseload of power, and at the moment the best way to do that is through what you might call the fossil fuels. But what's happening at the same time is that technology is pushing ahead very rapidly in terms of renewables. So we need the next step really for government and for industry needs to be working out ways of storage of those renewables. That's the next big challenge. But we're just in the middle at the moment where we've had a lack of planning, a lack of foresight. Ideology has come to the fore. Governments have continually interfered in markets, and now we're at the point where investment is very difficult. And what we can see is the quite clear possibility of blackouts, particularly in Victoria through next summer, and that's not palatable for anyone. You can't guarantee power, but what you don't want is big parts of states being blacked out, and that's another possibility. We had it last year. We don't need it again. It costs billions. Yeah,
I mean, and a lot of that also, I mean, you talked about investment there, but it's also down to this ageing fleet. You've got those two power stations that are unreliable, that have sort of been taken out of the system now in Victoria, which may well lead to these blackouts. And now you've got the closure as well of the Liddell power station in New South Wales within the next 5 years or so. And that report points to the fact that there could be as many as 770,000 customers or people or households in New South Wales that could well face blackouts on extremely hot days.
Well, exactly. So AGL has said that it will keep Liddell operating for another year. That won't come without cost to them, but that's really a band-aid solution, to be quite honest. It's just trying to keep that fleet, as you describe it, sort of chugging along for another year and with investment hoping for the best, but it's not the long-term solution that we need. So we're now at the point where we don't have reliable power. We have power that is among the world's most expensive, and we're a big supplier of power to the world. So we've got ourselves in this crazy predicament where we're an energy superpower, but we're paying more than our customers are for energy, and we can't be certain about its reliability. So that's why there's been a complete policy failure now by governments of both colours now for going back 15 years at federal and state level. And that's why industry can't really be certain about investment, because they don't know what the rules of the game are going to be.
Well, and that's a good point to make, that it's not any one particular party, it's all of them, because there's been change of governments. I mean, it was so, I don't want to say funny, but it was curious watching the reports yesterday when you had the feds blaming the states and the states blaming the feds. Who's owning up to it?
Well, exactly, and that's why business is frustrated and is basically saying, can we just please end this, and can we please get some long-term resolution and some long-term certainty? And that's why we've been calling for a couple of things as short-term measures. Governments to look at energy efficiency support measures for business, so businesses can power up or down as necessary. There's a thing called demand response. So when we are at peak stress times, there could be incentives for industry and households to wind down their power. Energy efficiency seems to be the best way of going at the moment, because we don't have infinite supply of energy. We don't have reliability, so we've got to work out how to use it best. But what we've seen, Peter, for years now is governments of both colours, state and federal, interfering in the operation of the energy market. So we don't have gas. That's ridiculously expensive, 3 to 4 times more than its historic levels. Electricity and power is significantly higher in terms of price, and neither of them are reliable. So that's why we need to look at things like transmission pipelines and the like. Sort of boring to talk about, interconnectors, those sort of things, but they're the sort of measures that are going to get us through, and that's what industry needs government to sit down and finally work through.
Yeah, well, they will create jobs as well. Innes Willox, we've got to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.